Shamika says, how do you name your mechs and guarantees? So let's start with the mech. The way that I do it is I envision the mechanism. She said, yours are so good. Oh, thank you. It's very nice. I think of what the mechanism looks like in my head. What is it? How would I create a metaphor? And again, I don't think, okay, Kyle, time to create a metaphor. I don't do that. I simply try to think of like, what is it? Like how could I describe it in 2 words? And that's really the crux of it. So you say, how do you name your mechs and guarantees? But it starts there with the mechanism. The mechanism, there are 2 things that you start with when you start research, and that is your guru and their mechanism. So those are primary source research. The guru can tell you his whole life story, how he discovered the mechanism, all of his credentials, and all of his results. He can just, right away, you got that. You got him at your disposal, or her. And then the mechanism sounds like a one-word thing. It is not. It's a big, giant, like, book of information. It's everything that they know, everything that they look for, every sort of thing they take into consideration before they place the trade. And your job is to take all of that and say, okay, well, what's like the most important thing of all that? Like, what is it at its core? And say, okay, it's this one main thing. Now I think, how would I just describe that thing? What does that sound like to me? What does it look like to me? To me, MoneyLink makes sense because he was trading the relationship, the correlation. A 96% correlated stock to him meant like, okay, these things are 96% correlated. We've noticed that if this stock moves, this stock returns or responds in kind. At the crux of it, that's what he's doing. Like asking him, why are you trading this way? What are you looking for? How do you know? And to him, to explain it to me, well, we noticed that when Amazon moves up $1, Alibaba would move down $1, 96% of the time. And so he's trading a correlation. And to me, as a regular person, like I don't trade, I don't do options. To me, as a regular person, I'm like, okay, so you're trading like the link between these 2 stocks. And he's like, yeah, they're linked and they have a correlation. So they're like, they move together. All right, so they're linked. So MoneyLink just made sense because what is the result that they want? They want money. That's a result the reader wants, money. It's a similar concept for some of my other ones. I'll give you more. All of these are $1 million mechanisms. I'm sure you've heard the Chad Blitz one. I'll give you that one again. Lance had this options trading strategy where he would be able to pinpoint these like massive overnight moves for like $5,000 overnight. Now I would say, how you do that? He says, well, I have this trade tracker software. I'm like, okay, well, how does it do it? He's like, well, I had to plug in like a bunch of fucking research and parameters to find exactly what I'm looking for. And I was like, all right, can you show me one? And he's like, look right here. See this trade alert? It's a call sweep. I said, what's a call sweep? He said, well, that's when all the options of a certain expiration or whatever are all bought across multiple exchanges at the exact same time. See here, someone bought all of them from this exchange, and this exchange, all in the exact same time. That triggers an alert. Well, what is a call sweep? Why would someone do that? Well, if someone would buy all the options at the same time from different exchanges, they're probably doing it to keep the price down. Because if they bought all that many on one exchange, the price would be pushed up and people would notice. Why would they care if people noticed? Oh, because most of the time it's how insiders trade on insider information without getting busted. So they have insider information. Can you prove that? Well, you can't prove that they actually had insider information. There's insiders. But if you look at the news, you see something like this. The next day, there's big news that nobody knew, but somebody knew. And I'm like, all right, the call sweep. And it's sneaky. And it's fast. How am I going to explain this call sweep thing as someone sneakily with more information than they should have or is exploiting that information? What would I name that? I called it a blitz. I had this whole idea for a promo about football. And I was like, I just don't think sports analogies have ever worked in financial publishing. Then I had like this idea for Blitzkrieg, for like German World War II Blitzkrieg stuff about how you absolutely annihilate the enemy or something like that. And I thought about that and I was like, I just can't find a way to sell that. And then the next thing I called it was Shadow Blitz, which is this very sneaky, stealthy, fast invasion, like this fast insider move that insiders were using to get really rich. And so Shadow Blitz was the name of that mechanism. And whenever you say Shadow Blitz, people instantly recognize the idea. Now, all of my writers have either written a mechanism with the word blitz or the word shadow in completely inappropriate settings, where it makes no sense to use the word blitz or shadow. It doesn't actually describe what the mechanism is or what is actually happening. So what my mechanism was, so the Shadow Blitz is actually the force of nature. The mechanism was just a blitz alert. The money link here was the force of nature. Link trade was the mechanism. So the first step is to understand what is at play. And once you actually understand what is at play, the name sort of reveals itself. You're like, oh, this is like that. This reminds me of Black. Like, once you actually understand it, legitimately, coming up with a name is kind of an accident, right? So how do you name your mechs and your guarantees and your forces of nature? It's by actually understanding what it is that you're working with or selling. And most people do not. Because most copywriters, this is one of those expressions that I say all the time and nobody actually executes it. Give me 5 hours to chop down a tree. I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. All the copywriters all want to spend all of their time writing copy. It's not what we do. We research, and then we take that research and we apply it to a blueprint. Where do we get the blueprint? We get the blueprint from 5, 3, 1. That's it. That's the whole game. It's not writing. We're researchers and compilers. All right? That's your main job. And the rest of it's kind of like editing. So that's a very long answer, but it is, I mean, it's like the most important is the crux, right? It summarizes everything that you're asking.